Yo, 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 what's up, pals? It's your boy Telos,
And HB.
and this is the group chat where we have meaningful conversations about meaningful topics.
Pal.
What's up, pal?
Not much. How about you?
Pal sounds like a computer that was designed by an evil genius for the purpose of good that's going to take over the world.
A pal?
Pal.
No.
It's like what they would name the computer.
No, I call
takes
my
over the world.
friends pals.
It sounds also demeaning when you call somebody a pal. Like a person. If I called somebody a pal, like, hey, pal,
Buddy,
no.
old friend, old pal.
Yeah,
of
it
mine.
sounds like, oh, it's the way to address somebody with the same sentiment of bless your heart. That's what it is.
I don't think so, but
Really?
yeah, no.
Like you're genuine all the time if you call somebody a pal.
Yeah, they're my friend, my pal. I mean, I see what you're saying, but not when it's coming from Hannah Beth.
Of course not. Do you get my evil computer that's going to take over the world?
Yeah, isn't that like a system? PAL?
Is it?
I thought it was.
What does it stand for?
I have no idea.
It's on a computer?
Yeah, it's like a spyware or something. No?
I don't know.
Oh. That's where I thought you were with that.
Oh, no.
Otherwise, no.
No, I'm thinking like if you had a movie and there was a guy who was like, I'm going to save the world. This AI is going to like help us do everything that we've ever wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden the computer gets too smart and takes over the world. And they have to shut it down. And like The Rock is the one who has to like punch the computer to death in this movie.
This isn't a movie I'd care to watch. Just so you
I'd
know.
watch it. The computer in that movie's name is Pal.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay. So why did you say, did you get my whatever you said? You said, did you get what I was saying?
Oh, like, does it resonate with you? Do you get it?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. If you could only have one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Oh.
No. Breakfast. Really? Chick-fil-A. That's interesting.
Probably not.
Oh,
but,
okay. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You could only eat that type of food at that point in the day for the rest of your life. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Probably dinner. Yeah. I'd never eat breakfast. If I eat breakfast, it's at dinner time. But I understand what you're saying.
Wow.
Breakfast foods.
You never eat breakfast foods?
Very rarely. Unless
When was
it's
the last time you had a
Chick-fil-A.
pancake?
Did I have pancakes after Camp Collide? I have no idea the last time I had a
Do you eat
pancake.
yogurt?
Yes. But I don't know. I don't really... Yogurt I eat more as a snack.
Oatmeal?
I don't like oatmeal at all.
Oh, you haven't had the right oatmeal.
Okay.
Oatmeal's
fair
great.
enough.
You don't like eggs?
Not really.
Any kind. Like no matter
Unless
how they're
there's
made.
cheese on it. Scrambled. I like
Oh.
omelets, but like I'm not ever going to make myself an omelet. If I'm at if I'm with friends and they're like, "Oh, we're making omelets," which that's happened probably about 3 times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Okay, cool," but I'm not eating like just a cheese omelet. I'm going to put something else in it like peppers and stuff. But even just like plain cheese eggs, like they have to have something on it. I will not just order that.
Bacon?
I like bacon. Last time I had bacon, probably had it on a salad, actually. Probably dinner, though. What about you?
Dinner, not lunch, although lunch is, like, sandwiches are some of my favorite foods.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't eat lunch that much.
Same.
If I had to pick one food for the rest of my, it has to be between breakfast and dinner. My answer is dinner.
Yeah. There's so much more of a variety, I feel
Yeah.
like, to pull from.
But if you go to other countries, breakfast in other countries like beans.
Oh,
and
I know.
It's like not the breakfast we have here.
We had pho in Vietnam every day for breakfast. Every day.
Soup.
With noodles, but it was
soup.
so good.
Have I told you my theory that every food that you can make, unless it's like an egg, but every meal, every type of food, unless it's a one thing like a chicken or an egg,
Okay.
is one of 3 things. It is either a soup, a salad, or a sandwich. prove me wrong.
So you're saying like if it's a hamburger, it's a sandwich.
Absolutely.
Okay. What were you said?
Soup, a salad, or a sandwich, no matter what.
So like a piece of salmon, you're saying that's just like on its own.
Right. That's salmon.
Okay.
You can meditate on that. You can stir in that just a little bit if you want.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I think I'm right.
Yeah, you might be.
I might be. Right?
Well, see.
You think about it. If you can think of any food that's obviously not a chicken, a salmon, or a piece of bread. Bear? Yeah, like that's not like that's its thing. It is the gummy bear. If you say like what's a Why are you? Because I thought of one, and you're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. But a pot roast, that junk is either a soup or a salad. Depends on how much broth is in it. But if you just take it out, it's a salad.
But what's the difference in a pot roast and a piece of salmon, though? Like when we're comparing it.
Pot roast has a bunch. When I say pot roast, I mean like you have like a pork shoulder, potatoes, carrots, celery, whatever.
Okay,
all the junk in it, and then
that's soup.
It depends on how much broth.
Salad, tell us.
If it doesn't have a lot of broth, it's a salad.
What salad is?
It's a salad.
No.
If it doesn't have broth in it.
It does have broth.
Okay, well then I'd call it a soup.
Yeah, I don't.
Or like a chicken pot pie. Soup.
I don't know about this theory.
It is.
I don't think it has to be anything. It's just I'm eating it, and I don't have to categorize what I eat.
You don't have to. I will for you. It is a soup. Okay, can you ask me what we're talking about today?
Tell us, what are we talking about today?
Well, before I get into that, can I get a good old HB drum roll real quick?
You almost forgot. You definitely almost forgot.
Nope, and I didn't. But I didn't.
But you almost did.
What we're talking about today is the question. It's in the form of a question. Do I need to go to church?
Yes.
You like the topic, or that's your answer?
Both.
Do I need to go to church? It probably was a different question 4 years ago.
Absolutely. Even 2 years ago.
Do I need to go to church? But I think the answer and maybe the point and like that conversation remains the same. Do I need to go to church? Your answer is yes. Answer quick. If you had to just give like why did you answer so quick? Why yes?
Because we're built to be together. Like it's one thing to be able to worship online, and that's great, and to hear a message online, but like it's so different when you're in person. Like just when you're worshiping together, when you're hearing a word together, when that like congregational type gathering. I think we're built for that.
So what would you say to somebody who's like, okay, but what if I have my friends over at my house and I watch online?
Listen, when I was in high school and I would sleep over at a friend's house who didn't go to church, my parents would be like, yeah, you can. We're picking you up at 8 a.m. to come to church. It's like, yeah, you sure are.
I'll be ready.
I think but like, why? Why? I would ask them why. Why do you want to, you have your friends over and you're going to watch service. Why don't you just go?
Why wouldn't you just go to church?
Yeah.
What if the answer is, well, I am more comfortable at home. I get the same experience. Like I get what you get, but I get to be more comfortable.
You don't get the same experience.
Ooh, what's the like?
It's the gathering of the church.
Does it have to be inside the building?
No.
So what if me and my small group watch at my house?
Yeah, that's fine. For my preference, I'm going to be at home. I mean, at church. But I think there is an importance to it, like that we aren't. I mean, I get what you're saying in the sense of like, okay, you're going to do it with a group of people. You're going to gather a group of people. And at the end of the day, like you think about churches back then, like they were house churches, like even still overseas, like some of those churches are house churches.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have the opportunity though.
And even to say, and I know I've been playing devil's advocate, but even to say those house churches over in close countries wish they could have church like us.
100%.
And so when people ever do bring that up, I'm like, yeah, they do that because they have to, not because they want to.
Yeah, they don't have the opportunity to gather.
They can't go to church and be open about their faith, however or whenever, with whoever they want. Because I think that question of, can I just sit at home and watch and be with my friends at church, is a question that people are going to have a lot. And do you get the same thing in terms of the same information? Sure. Do you get the same like impartation? Debatable, maybe. I think that God is wherever his people are, for sure. We see that in scripture. But one of my big things on why I think that it's important that you are not just listening to a podcast every week, watching it on YouTube, even live every week, even with your small group every week, is because that enforces this mentality that I am at church to consume what is provided and not to contribute to the body. Yeah. Because if we look at, I think it's 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul's talking about the church, he's referencing that you are the church. And yes, I hear people say, you don't go to church, you are the church. Yeah. I think it's both, but we can talk about that. Paul says that we are, Christ's body is the church, right? And so in that, he then goes into saying that we have all been given gifts by Christ to be used in the context of the church. Yeah. And I think a lot of the times we, in our Western mindset, go to church to see like one or two people's gifts and then leave, never using our own. I go to church to see the pastor's gift and to see the worship leader's gift, and then I leave, having never used my own. And I think that's unbiblical. Yeah. Paul says we're supposed to use our gifts. And when we go into church just looking and appreciating somebody else's, that's fine. He gave teachers for a reason, and people can exhort for a reason, obviously. And he gave you something. And so if you're not using it, you are not receiving all of the blessing that God has for you if you go to church just looking to take in somebody else's gift without using your own.
Yeah. There was a girl in my small group. I totally agree with what you're saying. And she said, like, she came to small group during, like, I guess the beginning and everything of COVID and whatnot. But she didn't come to church when we started back. And just for other reasons. But when she finally started coming back, she started serving again. And she was like, I can't tell you how much I've missed serving. And I'm like, yeah, like you can't, like that is something that like you can't do at home, like for the church at least. Like,
sure.
In that,
oh, yeah.
Like you can't greet at, you know, you can't.
I greet when my friends come over.
Serve like the hospital. I mean, I guess you could in a sense,
no,
you
sure,
know,
yeah,
but
exactly.
like, and so anyway, she was just like, I've forgotten how much I love serving at church. And she was like, that's not just like being able to put donuts out or fill up the coffee things, but she was like, also just that team that I work with or serve with. I was like, that's a great point.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like we see in the scriptures all the time, or no, we see that Jesus says, where two or more are gathered, I'll be with them. And so we have that promise. And I think that promise is meant for people to know that God is with his people, not to empower his people to not be with his people.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird, like twisting. And I don't think we do it intentionally. To be honest, I think that it's convenient and we choose not to go to church. I was looking at a study with people who go to church or not. And this study from Pew says that the number one reason that people go to church is because they want to be closer with God. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I probably could have said that. Yeah. Makes sense. But like the number 2 and 3 and 4, I think were that one is that people feel guilty, or these are out of order, I think. Yeah. But 2, 3, and 4 are people feel guilty, which I'm like makes sense.
Yep.
People want a moral foundation for their children,
and not themselves.
Right. They're just like, hey, no, I want you to be better.
We can't raise them right, so we'll have the church raise them right.
Literally. Straight up. And the third one was because they want to be a better person.
Okay.
They want to be a better person. And so all of these things are like, okay, I could see that with like why people go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we still have a bunch of people who aren't going to church. With that in context, what has your experience been with church? Because it seems like you like it. So, like, what do you like about church, and why do you go?
Mm-hmm.
I know you work for a church. I was going to say you work here, so you have to be here.
I have to be here, and that's why I'm here.
Exactly. If I wasn't paid to be here, I
wasn't getting paid. You know what? I'd be on my bed too. No,
watching TV.
No, I could definitely resonate with the serving. I really love to serve, and so when you're like, I could go out and serve at a dog shelter.
Sure.
I could do whatever. But to know that what I'm doing is impacting the kingdom, like, it's over with. It's like game over for me. It's like, oh, I'm here. You know, like, what you need done. And so are you talking about on a Sunday? Your question?
Going to church? Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, even though I'm working here, serving here still on a Sunday, I think that, yes, is a huge part for me, but also just gathering with people and, like, being able to worship together, being able to, like, learn and be poured into together, you know, and even, like, kind of, I guess that goes back to, like, serving of just what you're talking about, like, the gifts that you have, even if I weren't on staff, you know, that it's still like, okay, I'm going to church, but, like, is it just to be filled up? Is it to, like, get me to Wednesday midweek service?
Sure.
Is it, you know, what is that? And I mean, I could say no, like, it's truly because I want to be here.
Right.
I want to be here.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't know, it's not to be like, oh, you checked the box. Good job, Hannah Beth.
Sure. Yeah. We see in scripture all the time people going to like following what God says and then not following what God says.
Yeah.
And it's just something that God also asks us to do.
Mm-hmm.
He says, don't forsake the gathering together of believers like some are in the habit of doing.
Yeah.
And that was important then, and it's important now. And we see all the time, like, would they call it a church? No, they call it a synagogue. But then we get introduced into the term church, the body of Christ. And then in the Old Testament, we had the temple. And so you had a lot of different aspects in the way and how people could worship, but all of them included people being together.
Yeah.
And I think the difference, what you were like talking about, I totally agree with, of not just saying, oh, I want to serve, or I want to feel better, or I want to give my time to something that matters. It's different if you're serving at the Red Cross, which
Sure.
is a great organization, saving lives, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Salvation Army, the whatever other nonprofit that you want to, ASPCA, whatever you want to do, those are all great. And there's, I think, a distinction between serving at those, giving your time to those, which are good things, and yet not ultimate things, in terms of these things at the end of the day are not contributing directly to what God loves.
Yeah.
And which is his bride. And I'm not saying that God doesn't love animals or God doesn't love people. I'm not saying people like don't need blood. I'm not saying that at all.
Sure.
I'm saying God said that his one love, his true love is his church.
Yeah.
And so if we love him, I think we ought to love what he loves. It's also ironic that if you are a Christian, I've never understood this, if you are following Jesus, you are the bride of Christ, and yet the bride of Christ sometimes doesn't like the bride of Christ. And I'm like, but that's you. I'm like, you're the church, but you don't like the church.
You just like you in the church.
Just I just like me. Right.
Well, actually, though, you know,
I just like me in the church, and me and my friends.
and
in
I
the
don't
church.
like the rest of the people in the church.
No, and it's
Tell
like
me that challenge me, or
it's one of those things where it's like we always think that we're right or the best or whatever, and so it's like, oh, if the church was just like me and my friends, then like everything would be great. But guess what? Everyone else thinks that. And if the world, that is such an interesting thought. If everyone in the world was just like you, what would the world look like? And I'm like, that's a scary thought.
I could give a humble answer, or I could give a
honest answer.
No.
And those are different.
No. But no, that's a, yeah.
But I mean, with all of that, there's a difference between serving God's bride, his love, and doing good things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the fact that you're doing it unto God. Now, you can serve ASPCA and serve dogs and cats unto God. Absolutely. Sure. You can do anything that is righteous under God and unto God. Absolutely. And God asks us to do what he loves the most, which is being his bride, experiencing his love and loving him unto him. And so that's what I think we want to do. If you had to say, who is church for, what would be your answer? Like, who should go to church?
Everyone. But I think that's a great question, because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, church is either just for Christians, just for believers. Well, how are they going to know? But anyways.
Sure.
It's just for the Christians, or it's just for the people who are hurting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's for, like, it's, what is that like saying? It's like a hospital for the sick hospital for the sick. But I think it's not to say that, like, yes, if you're a Christian, like you said, like, don't forsake the gathering of the believers. And so I think there's no person that it's not, oh, you're an outcast, you can't come.
Right.
I think it's just like Jesus loved all people, all people groups, all types of people. And so for us to sit here and say, like, oh, well, you are fill in the blank, you can't come, then we're wrong.
Why do you think fill in the blanks don't come? Like,
because I think
if it is for everybody.
Yeah. I think a lot of times there's been some form of church hurt, or they've been judged for maybe the lifestyle that they're living. And whether that's been in church that there's been hurt, or like they've just encountered people who hurt them. And so therefore they don't feel welcome in that space. And so they don't come to church.
Yeah. Bad experience.
What do you think?
I mean, in my experience, I think it's, that definitely, like, people have had bad experiences, and they have this disposition of church and who it is for. And it's one of those things that if you always think that it's not for you, you're going to see it that way. And why would you go? And you might run into somebody who says, oh, you can come. Actually, I was looking at the article, and it said, like, 37% of people in America said if they were invited to church, they would go. And so I think a lot of people would go to church. But I wonder how many of those 37 people are even being invited, because they're probably like, who knows, for a multitude of reasons. They're either not being invited. But then the other percentage of people who are saying, like, oh, no, I am just not interested. Maybe not even, like, hostile against church. You're just like, I'm not really interested in that. I think it's probably because they don't see a hope in it. So, like, what does it do for me? Which is a selfish way to look at it, but it's a human way to look at it.
It's a place to start.
Oh, yeah, like, why else do we do things, honestly, like, carnally? It's like, is there anything in it for me?
What's in it for me?
And they probably don't see a hope in it. They're like, if you're not hostile against it and you're not open to it, it then has to be, what is in it for me?
Yeah.
And they probably don't see anything in it for them.
Or if it's like,
they think their life is fine.
Yeah. Or if it's something along the lines of, like, oh, I went to this type of church, this kind of church growing up, and I hated it, and so therefore, like, they wouldn't be open to any other type of church, because not that even it was hurt, it was just like, ugh, I was dragged to it and I hated it, and so then they wouldn't be open to another type of church, or even that there are other types of churches, not even religions, but just like types of churches.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you're talking to two pastors' kids, church kids here. It's like you have an opinion of two people who grew up inside of the church. And I think we're fortunate and blessed to have people who represented the church really well, in a church that we grew up in and then learned to love, whatever.
Yeah.
And then still do love and want to be in and never want to leave. I think that's a blessing in itself. And it's like that double-edged sword of, am I biased? Probably. But like you're biased towards the things that you like because you grew up with them. Like, you might think that like PB&Js are the best things ever, but then somebody else might say peanut butter and banana is the best thing ever because they grew up with it.
Yeah.
Now, I think I'm right, but I don't necessarily think my bias makes me wrong. Yeah. And that's the opinion that you're getting. If you had to say to one person who was like not hostile against church, but like, I don't really get it. Like, my life seems fine. It seems like that's the place you go when, like what we just said, it's a hospital for sick. I don't feel sick, so I don't need to go. What would you say to that person if they were like, if you were talking to them and you got on the topic of church?
They're just like, why should they come to church? Or
yeah. Because I guess at the beginning we're like, who needs to go to church? Everyone.
Yeah.
And so if that person was here listening, I'm that person. And I'm like,
I don't want to go to church. I'm fine.
I'm like, I'm fine.
I would say
nothing's wrong.
I would say give me a month. Like, commit to a month. Come 4 Sundays and like just see what God does. I wouldn't say see what God does to them because they'd probably be like, yeah.
Like, what is he gonna do?
What is he gonna do? Am I
gonna get wings?
Can you imagine?
It's like, what has he done? Can you give me any historical text? What has he done?
No, I think because at the end of the day, I never want to force someone to come to church. I would love for them to want to, but even if they don't, I think it'd just be like, yo, give me 4 Sundays, and just, again, like, see, try it out. Like, yeah, you might hear some different pastors. You're going to hear different worship. You're going to see different people, get to know different people and just see, then I guess just go from there. But I think it's huge to get someone in the building. Like we're talking, like the church isn't just the building, but you know what I mean? Like if we're talking about church on a Sunday morning here, like getting them in the building is, I think, a huge piece. And then just really believing and trusting that God's going to reveal himself to them, because that's not my job.
Sure. Right.
I just need to be obedient.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just a servant in the house.
And when you walk in, I think it's all leaning on that fact or that understanding that there's something that happens when people of God gather together and that he promises to be with them. And if there has not been an intentional focus to welcome the person of God into an environment where somebody has not experienced him before, they might walk into that environment and realize, whoa, I've never experienced this before. Yep. I've never known it before. And so even though we don't go to church for the feeling of it, I often think that there is a feeling to it that people encounter or leave with. And I was like, whoa.
Well, even like some of my best friends in college in Alabama, great church that we went to there. And then they came to visit here and they're like, yo, there's something different about, and obviously we're biased, but like there's something different about this church. And he literally said, like, it feels like heaven here. And in the sense, he was like, it's so diverse, just like there's something different. And I was telling him about like Bishop Brett's just like prayer of like, God, let this be a church that looks like heaven. And he was like, this is where it's at. But it's just different. And that's not to say like, that's definitely been like intentional prayer and the leadership that we have of our church and covering of God. But, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So go to church.
Go to church.
Any other thoughts?
No. What would you say to that person?
I'd say that there's a hope in it. Because they might not have faith, but faith starts in hope.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, this is the group chat where we have meaningful conversations about meaningful topics. I have no idea. Make sure you guys go to church. My name's Telos.
I'm HB.
And we hope that you pals have a great week. But don't forget to have conversations like this, because remember, this is the group chat where we think in community, we talk in community, and we thrive in community. Y'all are the best. See you later, pals. Bye-bye.